Okay, so we were talking about encryption. I just defined what encryption is. I gave you an example of where you would find encryption in an application, like I gave you the example of WhatsApp. So I was just defining encryption, that encryption is a method of converting data into a form in which it becomes meaningless, or scrambling the data in such a way that it would become meaningless. Now, what do I exactly mean by that? Uh, when we use the computers, and probably when we are connected to a network such as the internet, most times when we use computers, we are connected in one way or the other, or we are connected to an external network such as the internet, and we are readily sharing data and information. All right, and we do it very openly. We are not really, I guess, too concerned about you know uh, where we are sharing what, although one has to be a little careful about it. But anyway, when we are using it, then probably we are not on our guard all the time, and we just very openly share whatever it is that we have to share with people. Now, the more the data that you share about yourself on external networks, the more are the chances of this data getting into wrong hands. Because there are all sorts of people out there with malintentions, okay, such as hackers. We know the term hacking, and we know that hackers are out there uh, on the global network, and they may exploit any data whenever they can. uh, they can target some individual as well, or an organization, and then they would actually want to get hold of their data illegally so that they can misuse it. All right, so hacking is basically an act of getting hold of somebody's personal data. It could be an individual, it could be an organization. So it is an act of getting hold of uh, some individuals or some organizations' data illegally, without their permission, with the intention to exploit it in some way, or bring about a harm to the person whom that data belongs to. That is what hacking is. When somebody hacks, it is without your permission. Okay, so we do understand that. So hackers are out there. Now, when does the data actually get misused? When does the data that goes in the hands of the hackers actually get misused? It gets misused when the hacker gets hold of it. He is able to read through what the data is. I will only be able to misuse something if I understand what it is. Are you getting what I'm saying? If I'm able to figure out or make out by reading it or by seeing it what the data is, then I will know its meaning and I will know how to exploit it or misuse it. But what if, when the hacker gets hold of some data, it is meaningless, or it is in a form that doesn't make any sense to the hacker? Would the hacker be able to misuse it in any way? Would he be able to misuse it in any way? He would not be able to, because to be able to exploit it, to be able to misuse it, the first thing is that the hacker must know what the data is. So what does encryption do? One of the concepts that I would make clear here also, students tend to generally confuse it or forget about it, although it is told every time this topic is done. But so I'll try to focus upon it so that you are able to understand it. It is a misconception that hacking, uh, when you hack the data, of course, it can be misused. So it is a misconception that encryption stops hacking. Encrypting data does not stop the data from being hacked, because hacking is gaining illegal access to data. Misusing the data is the next step. First, you get hold of it, and then you misuse it. All right. So, some people or most students actually confuse this, and they keep on forgetting about it. That encryption does not stop the data from being hacked. It will still get hacked, but what encryption does is that once the data gets hacked illegally or somebody gets hold of it illegally, if it is encrypted, if it is scrambled, then the person will not be able to misuse it, because the real damage starts when the data gets into wrong hands and the person starts to misuse it in some way. Then the real problem starts, then the consequences would come. But if the person is not able to understand, and then the person would not be able to misuse it or bring about any harm. Hence, encryption basically protects your data from being misused once the data has been hacked. Encryption stops the data from being misused once the data has been hacked. Okay, let's quickly have a look at what is written here about hacking. It says one specific type of encoding. Sorry, what is written here about encryption? Yeah, one specific type of encoding is encryption. Encryption also means encoding data. Encoding का मतलब वही हो गया जो मैंने भी आपको कहा था, converting it into a form in which it becomes meaningless. Encryption is when data is scrambled so that the data cannot be understood. Is that what we are talking about? Yeah? Yes. Hackers can encrypt our data. Why would a hacker encrypt our data? Actually, हाँ, ransomware जो है वो it's a part of our course. We will talk about what ransomware is later on in a chapter that is titled e-safety. We'll talk about ransomware, but ransomware is actually, it is not that somebody who gets hold of your data illegally would encrypt it to claim for some ransom. If they get hold of it, they don't have to encrypt it because it is just in their possession, and you will only get it back, according to them, you will only get it back once you pay a certain amount. Okay, so they do not have to encrypt it because their intention, the people who do this, their intention is to get hold of your data and basically stop you from gaining access to your own data. The access can only be given back once a certain amount is paid, which they call ransom. All right. So it is basically there. So we will have a detailed discussion on this when we get to that point. All right. So data can be encrypted when it is stored on a disk or stored on disks or other storage media, or it can be encrypted when it is sent across a network. One thing that we must remember is that when is the data most vulnerable? When is the data most vulnerable? It is the most vulnerable when it is in the phase of being transmitted over a network. That is where the chances of getting hold of it are the most, because when you are on the global network or external network, it is there that all sorts of people are there, and I do not know who the people who are there using the internet at that time. And out of all those people, who are the people who are genuine users of the internet or genuine users of the network, and who are the ones who have malintentions? So मुझे तो नहीं पता, right? So it is at that point that hackers would exploit data being transmitted, and they would grab it. There are less chances of data being getting hacked when it is actually stored on a local storage medium. If my data is stored on my local hard drive, the hard drive of my computer, and I have encrypted it, there are lesser chances of somebody getting hold of it and misusing it. But when it is in the phase of being transmitted or communicated, it is at that time that it is the most vulnerable. So this is something that we must keep in our mind as well. Okay. So basically, the more the sensitive the data is, the more would there be a need of protecting it. ज़रूरी नहीं है कि हर तरह का डेटा जो है उसको आपने एक ही तरह से प्रोटेक्ट करना है. It also depends upon the nature of data or information that you're holding. All the data or information that we are holding does not have, a certain level of sensitivity. Okay, uh, depends. Individuals' data may not be as sensitive as an organization's data. Yeah, because an organization's data would actually relate to many people. For example, if we talk about banks, now banks hold data about customers. You know, banks hold data about customers. If that data was to get into wrong hands, then a large scale damage would be caused, because not only that the bank would be affected or impacted, but all the customers that the bank has may get affected or impacted by that. So sometimes the consequences could be irreversible in some cases or in some situations. All right. So it does say here that data being sent across the network or the internet can be intercepted by hackers. Data stored on a storage media can be stolen or lost. The purpose of encryption The purpose of encryption is to make the data difficult or impossible to read if it is accessed by an unauthorized user. Accessing encrypted data legitimately is known as decryption. So this particular point, let me see if I can highlight this. This particular point is what I was emphasizing upon a while ago, that encryption does not stop the data from being hacked, but once it has been hacked, if your message or your data is encrypted, the person will not be able to misuse it. Now, having said this, when data is encrypted, in order to use it again, in order to use it again, it must be decrypted. Now, decryption would be bringing the data back into its original form, reversing it back from its scrambled form, bringing it back into its original form, so that now the person who has received the data can use it again. Because anybody who receives the scrambled data, the encrypted data, can also not use it until unless it is decrypted back into its original form, so that it again becomes meaningful. All right. Okay. Um, there are a number of terms that we use to describe encryption. I mean, there are a number of terms that we can use for encryption interchangeably. Encryption is one. Another term that we can make use of when we are talking about encryption is, well, we can call it encoding. Encryption can be called encoding. It can also be called ciphering or ciphertext. Yeah? Sorry? Exactly. That is why that document is called a cipher. You see, IT makes you learn a lot of things that are happening around in our everyday life. I'm glad that you brought it up. It is also called ciphertext. All right. So encoding, ciphering, ciphertext is one and the same thing. All right. आई विल कट आउट दिस पार्ट जो आप साइफर के बारे में बात करें अब उसको बेसिकली नाउ दैट यू ब्रॉट इट अप उसका नाम साइफर है क्यों वो साइफर इसीलिए है कि जब दो गवर्नमेंट्स के हाई ऑफिशियल्स कोई बहुत सेंसिटिव डॉक्यूमेंट एक दूसरे के साथ शेयर करते हैं ना तो आपको पता है कि गवर्नमेंट्स भी जब इंपॉर्टेंट इंफॉर्मेशन एक दूसरे के साथ डिजिटल फॉर्म में शेयर करती हैं इट इज एनक्रिप्टेड अब आम बंदे को नहीं आम बंदा ये सोचता है कि अच्छा ये पता नहीं ये कोई बड़ी खास कोई कोई क्या कहते हैं पॉलिटिकल टर्म है या कोई आई डोंट नो व्हाट यू मे कॉल इट, बड़ी टेक्निकल टर्म है जो क्या क्या कहते हैं गवर्नमेंट्स में या गवर्नमेंट डिपार्टमेंट्स या पॉलिटिक्स के अंदर या जो भी है यूज़ होती है, एक्चुअली उसको साइफर वो कह ही इसलिए रहे हैं बिकॉज इट इज़ एन एनक्रिप्टेड पीस ऑफ मैसेज which was sent, okay, and here it would have been decrypted to make sense out of it कि उसके अंदर क्या लिखा हुआ है, इसीलिए उसको भी साइफर कह रहे हैं. तो वो बेसिकली एनक्रिप्टेड मैसेज था जो आया था. Okay, so I was just referring to the fact that these are all the terms that we can use for encryption. Encoding, ciphering, we can call it ciphertext. Decryption, decoding. Decrypting, decryption, decoding are the terms that you can use to describe the process of bringing the data back into its original form so that now it can be used again. All right? Okay, now tell me one thing. Do you think that encryption is a concept which is only linked to use of computers, or is it an older concept? Older concept. How many of you think that? Yeah, my question was, is encryption a concept which only relates to data being shared and used on computers, or it is a concept older than that? So quite a few think that it is a concept older than that. It's not really dependent upon computers. All right. So the answer is yes. It is an age-old concept. Scrambling data to hide its meaning is an age-old concept. And how would we get to know about it? Let's see. Have a look at Caesar cipher. I will just read over it to give you an idea how old this concept is. So here it says, a cipher is a secret way of writing. वही बात हो गई. Like converting the data into a form which makes it unreadable. In other words, it is a code. Ciphers are used to convert a message into an encrypted message. It is a special type of algorithm which defines the set of rules to follow to encrypt a message. By the way, of course, there's a method about how we scramble the data. There's a method used. It is not that you do it in a haywire kind of a way, that okay, I'll just scramble it in any way. If you scramble it just in any way, how would the person receiving the text or receiving the message it is meant for know how to bring it back into its original form? So there is a method about it. There is a mathematical method about how do you encrypt, and then use the same mathematical method, okay, to decrypt it. So when he uses the term algorithm here, algorithm means a program, a computer program that would do this. Yeah, algorithm is just a computer program that defines how to scramble and then how to unscramble or decode or decrypt. Roman Emperor Julius Caesar created the Caesar cipher so that he could communicate in secret with his generals. कितनी पुरानी बात है? Age old, right? Nobody would have even imagined that there would be something called a computer in this world at some point in time. So this secretive way of communicating with each other has been going on since ages. Julius Caesar invented a secretive way of communicating important messages with his generals, which is known as the Caesar cipher. All right. So, why would Julius Caesar do that? Well, the reason he would do that is in today's day and age, the way we go about doing our things using computers and communicating stuff, it is just at the palm of our hands. It's very easy to do. But in the days gone by, in the days of Julius Caesar and other types of people of that era, When they had to send a message across, that message was not sent through an email or something, but some messenger had to take that message. Yeah. And messengers would, at times, it would take them days or weeks to get to the location where they had to convey the message. And it had to be taken by hand because it was written on a piece of paper or something else, maybe. So they had to take it either by foot or on a horse. There were no cars. Yeah. So what if that messenger who was traveling all the way to that destination, taking days or weeks, what if that messenger was intercepted by your enemies, on the way, and if they get hold of the message, then they would know what Julius Caesar was trying to communicate to his generals. Any important messages that he would like to convey to his army, that what they have to do, any strategies or whatever, the enemy would know it already and they would prepare against it. Yeah. If the message was not encrypted, if the message that Julius Caesar was sending, if it wasn't encrypted, or if it wasn't ciphertext, then anybody in the enemy, if would get hold of it, they would know what's going on. But if Julius Caesar would encrypt his message using the Caesar cipher, even if the messenger was intercepted on the way and the person grabs the message and tries to read through, would not be able to make out what the message is. So would it be of any help or advantage to him? No, it won't be. So this is where the idea, or it dates back to this time, that where people, when communicated, and they wanted to communicate sensitive information, which they wanted to make sure that nobody is able to get hold of, or even if somebody gets hold of, are not able to understand. This is where this concept of scrambling of data or ciphering of data, uh, came into being. So this is what it is. Now, the Caesar cipher is sometimes known as a shift cipher because it selects replacement letters by shifting along the alphabet. Caesar cipher is also called a shift cipher because it works along replacement of letters or alphabets in such a way that it would become meaningless. By the way, we will do a small exercise very quickly in a few minutes, which will actually make you realize that one of the simplest ciphering techniques in the world, which is the Caesar cipher, how much it can make the data meaningless. तो हम आजकल के जो algorithms हैं that are very very complex. You see the kind of algorithms that computers can use. Can you compare them with maybe any method of ciphering that was used, that far back in the past? No. Today's algorithms are very very advanced. All right. Okay. So what is this about? Why is it called the shift cipher? I just told you that because it makes you change the position of the letters in your text by shifting the letters around. So if we talk about shifting three letters, plus three shift, and we take this example of the word hello, if the word hello was to scrambled or encrypted using the Caesar cipher plus three shift method, what would it mean? That every letter must be replaced, every letter in your text must be replaced with a letter that would be in the third position from that letter. So H के बाद जो third position पे letter आता है वो क्या है? H, I, J, K. ठीक है? What letter comes in the third position after E? E, G, yeah, H, L, M, N, O. So the third letter, two times, yeah. Yeah, PQR. LMNOPQR. So it O gets replaced by R. Now the word hello becomes this. Just look at it for a minute or so to try to figure out what's happening. Now imagine the word hello and the word, how would you pronounce it by the way? Core, or I don't know. Okay, CHOOR. Does it make any sense? If somebody gets hold of text that has this word there, well, you would not know what this word is about. It's not an English word. You would not have heard about it. So it would be very difficult for you to figure out what this is about. And imagine if the entire text is in that form, it will just blow your mind. You would not be able to really figure out. Particularly when you also do not know the method behind encrypting. अभी तो आपको पता है ना कि what encryption method has been used to do this, okay? What if you do not know what algorithm, what mathematical calculations have been used to encrypt this data? Would there be any way to really guess as to what it is? Well, very difficult. And here as well, with Caesar cipher as well, it is not a case of making use of +3 shift always. Sometimes it would be +2, sometimes it would be +4. Okay, so how many methods would the person getting hold of the message try, in order to figure out as to was +2 shift used, was +3 shift used, was +4 shift used, +5 shift used, what was the method used? Even at that time, it would have been very difficult. So are you getting what I'm saying? You get an idea, okay, how difficult it may become to really understand what the data is if it has been encrypted. And one last thing, before I ask you to do this exercise that I have in mind, is that if you do not know the algorithm behind encryption, then it would be very, very difficult, almost, when we talk about today and the kind of very, very complex encryption algorithms that computers are using. We will actually also talk about this a bit, the complexity of algorithms, how complex they are. It is almost impossible to crack them. It is almost impossible to crack them. Okay, all right. So your messages on WhatsApp are end-to-end encrypted because WhatsApp wants to make sure that all the communication that is going on between WhatsApp users is encrypted, so that if that communication was to go into wrong hands, or if it was to hacked, at least the WhatsApp users are not impacted or affected, because if it is scrambled or if it is encrypted, hackers would not be able to do much about it. Also, why would WhatsApp want to do that? The reason is the sensitivity of information that is being communicated over WhatsApp. Now, why do I say that information being communicated over WhatsApp is sensitive? Is because we are using all forms of information representation when we use WhatsApp. We are not only communicating in text, we are sharing our pictures readily, we are sharing videos, okay, and whatnot. So the more the different forms that we are using personal to us when we are communicating information about us, the more the sensitive the information would become. And the graver would be the consequences if if those messages were to get into wrong hands. Hence, it's the need of the time that they had to do it. Also, we have noticed that now even organizations are in some sense of formal way using WhatsApp when it comes to communication, such as WhatsApp groups and stuff. There's so many people on groups, and in some sort of a formal setting as well, WhatsApp is being used for communication. Hence the need for encryption. All right.